Alandria Williams, of blessed memory, is one of our Unitarian Universalist ancestors gone too soon. You just heard E's powerful words, which they spoke from the pro mic at General Assembly in Portland, Oregon in 2015, in support of an action of immediate witness, in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, surrounded by the youth and young adult caucuses. E says, this faith is shaped as much by those ancestors as by the ancestors currently in our congregations. We come to it through different avenues, reading the Transcendentalists as babies or as little kids. I am someone who came to this faith as a baby. My mother, raised Catholic, was seeking a religious community within which to raise her children, and found a small UU fellowship in the Columbia River Gorge on the border of Oregon and Washington, where I grew up. I loved growing up in this small, connected, and powerful community. I loved being a UU child. I suffered through our whole lives begrudgingly. I adored our coming of age program. I left my community when I was 18. I spent time in and out of UU communities throughout my young adulthood, being a part of campus ministries, dabbling in Sunday morning church. For a while, I lived 2 blocks from a UU church in my late teens, and I couldn't quite rise early enough to make it to worship, but I could always get there in time for coffee and a bagel. So I would arrive when the worship had concluded, have my coffee, and leave. Church can mean a lot of different things to us. The call to ministry, which I have now followed, arose in me throughout my life, but in 2020, I decided to pursue this calling. In our faith, when a person wants to become a minister, they need a Unitarian Universalist congregation to sponsor them. A community of faith which says, we see in you a minister. UUP is the sponsoring congregation of the soon-to-be, in just a few hours, Reverend Rosemary Dodd. Similarly, I asked the congregation who raised me to sponsor my call, and they enthusiastically agreed, but they encountered one problem, which was I was not a member. I thought, okay, what congregation am I a member of? And then I realized, though I had devoted my entire life to this tradition, I had never been a member of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Maybe this too is a very UU thing about me. Okay, I will join, problem solved. So that wonderful congregation has a tradition that when somebody joins, they are given a small gift, a copy of a book called A Chosen Faith. In the deep pandemic, they mailed it to me, and I participated in the new member ceremony on Zoom, signing my name on a piece of paper and mailing it back to them to stick into the membership book. Do you remember just how creative and flexible we can be? A chosen faith. So, to be honest, I wasn't very sure about this. I was born and raised here. It felt more like this faith had been given to me, like I had inherited it. So I thought about this a little bit more. We are a faith of finders and seekers. Each one of us comes to this faith through a different path. Many of us come from different spiritual and religious traditions or none at all. And what we find here too is different. Each congregation is its own unique place. This is something that I love about Unitarian Universalism. We are a diverse people, theologically, culturally, in background, in belief. We find our way here like rivers which run to the sea, all from different origin points, but all ending up somehow in this room together. And you are here under no particular threat of punishment or damnation. Our God doesn't even take attendance. Maybe you have come here because your friends said, check out this congregation. They do some fun Sunday morning music. Maybe you're here because you heard that Darlene makes the best cup of fair trade coffee in town. But no matter how you got here, you are here at this particular exact and exquisite moment in different parts of your journey, choosing to be here. And so am I. So if you are choosing to be here, you also inherit a particular legacy of this faith and as what has come before. Recently, I had coffee with a young person from my own community who is trying to discern if the voice that they hear calling them is a call to ministry. This person was raised Catholic and has expanded their own theology of love and justice here in Unitarian Universalist community. They asked me with some hesitation, how UU do I need to be? How do I know if I am a UU? And I said, if you feel like a UU, you might be one. There is no magic threshold. They beamed. And I said, welcome. Now, the stickiness and the messiness, the committees without committee chairs, the budgets not quite big enough, the new floors that need replacing, yours. Here you go. It is a total package. But it has some good bells and whistles, too. Alandria says, we are the children of freedom fighters, visionaries, and radical liberal theologians. While we inherit the leaky faucets that our previous generations didn't replace, we also inherit their courage, their power, their willingness to speak the truth in love, the rituals that they designed for us, the hymns they wrote for us, the buildings they built or bought for us, to invest in future generations of this faith. And here we are. If you have come this morning, even if this is your first time, welcome. It's yours if you want it. Total package. It is also yours to walk away from if it doesn't serve you. This too is part of our theological legacy. Each one of us is free to come whoever you are to belong here, and each of us is free to leave, O lovers of leaving, if this is not the place for you. We will neither force you to stay nor create a theology that says you are wrong if you leave. This matters to us. If you choose to be here, we ask that you agree to a covenant of how we will be with each other, rooted in love, justice, transformation, and peace, not coercion. This young person who I had coffee with is figuring out if this is the right tradition and the right job for them. In Unitarian Universalism, we practice a nerdy church word called congregational polity. This is how we govern one another, how we make decisions together, how we relate to each other as congregations and a denomination. And it involves how we select and train our leaders. Our ministers are considered no holier nor more special than anyone else in our faith. No more UU than anybody else. Instead, the people tasked with holding a particular set of skills and a particular role in the community and institution. And we ask them to make a claim to this faith, a stake, to make it their own, to listen when you all tell us what this place means to you and how you are called. It is important to us that our leaders arise from us, from who we are. This is why we require our ministers to have been involved in congregational life, to be sponsored by a congregation who believes in and supports their call before they can be ordained. And the power to ordain our leaders rests only with you, dear congregation. The denominational body cannot ordain ministers, neither can God. Only you, the gathered body, can do that. We have processes for how we determine readiness for ministry that rely on both the congregation and the denomination. But at the end of the day, our ministers come from us, reflecting us. This process comes from our values. Many of us will regather this afternoon to do just that, to ordain one of your own to the ministry, to bestow upon her our trust, to give her this chosen and inherited tradition. She has inherited it, but she has chosen it too. And so have I. And so have each of you. If you're here, it's yours if you want it. As part of my own journey to ministry, I served as a hospital chaplain at a community hospital in Beverly, Massachusetts. On my very last day, I had finished visiting all of my patients. My last day, I went to turn in my badge, and my supervisor said, "I have one more patient for you to visit." So tired as I was, I went. And as it turns out, he was a Unitarian Universalist, which I didn't get too many of in this Catholic hospital on the North Shore of Massachusetts. And often in true UU fashion, the UU patients didn't want a visit from the chaplain. But he welcomed me and he asked me to stay by his bedside while he meditated. Later, I revealed to him that I too was UU, and after a while of chatting, he said contemplatively, "This faith has given me more friction, strength, joy, and frustration than anything else in the world, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." Me too. We, here in our communities, we receive and we recreate this tradition. Our interactions, our worship, our polity, our rituals, how we sit, the coffee we make, we recreate this faith anew each time. I was raised here. Some of us were. Many of us journeyed here or are still journeying here from different places through long and winding roads through our own spiritual wilderness. But however you arrive here today, you have decided to be here. No tricks or traps, no theological games, your choice. And if you are here, then we hand it over to you. If you're here, it's yours. And we stand on the shoulders of giants in this faith tradition. The Reverend Olympia Brown, the first woman ordained in the Universalist Church, who was the first woman pastor in the United States. Sophia Lyon-Fahs, a religious educator, who gave us a legacy that says of a pedagogy where we treat our children and youth as whole religious people and seekers in their own right. The Reverend James Reeb, who traveled to Selma to be in solidarity with our neighbors and taught us what showing up for justice looks like. The youth and young adults of the liberal religious youth, who with their courage and moral clarity led us to unity 8 years before their grown-ups were ready to do so. These ancestors that we know and countless other ancestors that we do not know, and all of you. The ordinary, extraordinary people in congregations all across the country who make coffee, who teach children, who set up our tables and chairs, who make our communities possible each and every day. These are the chosen ancestors in our communities who have left this tradition to us. So if you're here, it is yours. So we go forward, creating this tradition together in this future we create to make a new land, to journey together toward that place that we are dreaming of, to build a community of faith which is ours in how we make it, ours in how we choose our leaders, ours in how we care for one another, ours to receive from our chosen ancestors, recreate and pass to a new generation who will interpret this tradition for uniquely who they are and the land they are traveling to. And what a friction-filled, often frustrating, strength-giving, and ultimately joyful task it is. So I invite you to come and go with me into that task and into that land. Blessed be, and may it be so.